So tonight I'm going to share my adventures cycling around the world bit by bit. And I have an amazing, could you hit the lights, Bill? Or I have an amazing 80 slides to cover that I'm going to fly through in 50 minutes. If you have a quick question, go ahead and speak up and we can handle it. Otherwise, you should have 10 or 15 minutes at the end for longer questions. Outline, I'm going to give a brief intro to bicycle touring and then talk about how you ride your bike around the world. And then maybe more interesting, why you choose to ride your bike around the world. So let's start an intro. I've done Cycle Oregon 6 times myself. Who else has done Cycle Oregon? I think you're in the back. Yeah, so Cycle Oregon's a lot of fun. Beer tent, what's not to love? But if you want to ride your bike around the world, you can't do it in Cycle Oregon. So tonight I'm going to talk about self-supported bicycle touring, which is articulated by the points here. So you're on your own. You have to carry your own gear. There's no rescue, no repair. It's all entirely up to you. On the plus side, you get to choose the route and you get to go to a schedule you want. And self-supported bicycle touring, this is a couple of shots of some folks I saw on the road. And I'll highlight this woman on the left here. So this is a skinny woman with a lot of bags. And I would be surprised if the bike and her gear weighs more than she does, which is fairly common to carry a big load when you're doing self-supported bicycle touring. So how I got into this, people that know Louise Brown, So Louise lives in Bend now, but she was active in the club for years. And when I met her, she considered herself a bicyclist, but had never ridden her bike more than 50 miles or not even 50 miles. But somehow in 2017, I convinced her to join me in riding our bicycles across the United States, which then proceeded to do. And in spite of her lack of experience, pretty soon she started dropping me on all the climbs. So this is what we did. We called it Portland to Portland, Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, 88 days and over 5,000 miles. And I had a wonderful time on this trip. I had so much fun. I'd gone backpacking the year before that I decided I like to go bicycle touring more than backpacking. And then I got an idea. I thought, suppose I stitch together bit by bit a bunch of these tours at 100 days each. Maybe I could ride my bike around the world. So that's what I've been trying to do ever since. I've done, ever since 2017, I've taken off to do a tour. I lost 1 year to COVID like everyone else, but I've done 5 tours now, and they've been about 100 days and about 5,000 miles each. If the circumference of the Earth is under 25,000 miles, and I've ridden over 26,000 miles, then one could argue I've ridden my bike around the world. Now that's maybe a more flattering way or boastful way. A less flattering and more accurate way is to look at the map. So this is a picture of all my tours by year. And when I look at it this way, I see, well, there's no path that strings around the world. And there are whole continents I haven't even gone to, right? So, and even the continents I went to. So last fall, I went to Australia and I did ride across Australia, but so much of Australia I didn't see. So, so far I don't think I've ridden around the world, but I'm working on it. I don't know how many more years I have in this, maybe 5, maybe 10 more years. We'll see how much of the map I can fill in. One of the reasons I haven't made better progress is that, after 100 days, I'm kind of done riding, So this is a picture of me in my office after 100 days of riding. And I actually look forward to going to work and sitting in cotton clothes. And I particularly like hearing the rain fall on the roof and knowing I don't have to deal with it. So for me, that's how it works, 100 days. Everybody has to choose their own adventure. So this slide is how I explained to my mom that I'm not really that crazy. There are people more crazy than me. So there are people that are cycling around the world, and I'm going to define that as riding around the world in one shot, not bit by bit like I've been doing it. and I'd say doing more than 24,000 miles and taking maybe 2 years. Some people take 5 years to ride their bike around the world. And I don't know how many people are doing this. Based on social media, I guess maybe 25, maybe as many as 300 people at any given moment are riding their bikes around the world. In this category, the leader of this is a guy named Heinz Stucke. This is a picture of him in 1962. He was 22 years old, he lived in Germany, and he decided he wanted to ride his bike to the Olympics that were going to happen in Japan that year. Turns out he didn't make it to the Olympics in time, so he missed his first goal. But he did do a lot of riding, and he rode straight for the next 50 years. I mean, he took some breaks, but he spent 50 years on the road bicycling, and altogether he covered 402,000 miles, astounding amount of distance. And this is the map of where he's covered. And clearly this guy, you should say, he's ridden not around the world, all over the world, right? Pretty impressive. The black dots are where he spent his Christmas every year. So now I look at this, and one of the themes of this talk is adventure. And so I'm drawn to the adventure. I think we're all drawn to the adventure, but I think the others have to decide at what cost does adventure come, right? So he was never married, he never had kids, never had a successful career. His friends were scattered all over. You know, I'm pulled this way, but personally, I don't have a desire to do that. But I respect what he's done. Okay, so I'll get to the second part. I'm going to talk about how you bicycle around the world. And first talk about all the prep that takes, the route and the bike and stuff like that. And then I'll talk about some of what's like riding. So let's start with the preparation. And the first question I always face is, where am I going to tour? And I'm going to answer that question in kind of a backwards sort of way. So this is a picture that I took when I approached Hanoi, Vietnam. And Hanoi, Vietnam has a metro area population of 5 million people. And this is what it looked like riding in Hanoi, right? So I think a fair adjective would be pandemonium, right? I was glad I did it, but I didn't want to do it day after day. And I have ridden in other large metro areas. Los Angeles, California, with a metro population of 18 million people, was maybe the worst cycling experience I've ever had. It was really dangerous and no fun at all, but I made it through. I rode through Osaka, Japan, which has an even larger metro population of 19 million people. As you might expect, I actually felt pretty safe riding through Osaka, Japan, but it was mind-numbingly boring as there were traffic lights every 500 meters, and it took me all effing day to just cross through Osaka. So, I love bicycles, and actually I love cities, but bicycles and cities do not go together well. So if you want to see the big cities of Europe, I wouldn't do it on a bicycle. So as a bicyclist, when I'm choosing a route, I'm going to choose the less populated rural areas. And there's a comic from the New Yorker a few years ago that I really like, that I think communicates this. It's a little hard to read the sign. There's a sign down there that says, "It all and away from it all." And as a touring cyclist, I go away from it all, and I'm fine with that. I don't want to go to the tourist areas, and I feel like seeing the rural and the countryside and less populated, I get a sense for what the real country is like and what the real people do, and that experience the culture in the places that I ride is a big part of the reason why I do bicycle touring. All right, so some specifics on choosing the route. If you want to ride your bicycle in the United States, we are very fortunate because there is a nonprofit organization called Adventure Cycling. How many people are members of Adventure Cycling? A few of you, not a lot of you. Okay, how many people have heard of Adventure Cycling? Okay, so Adventure Cycling has a great network of low traffic routes that they've designated. They're not a separate bike path, but they're low traffic. And even better, Adventure Cycling has brochures associated with every single one of their routes. And I almost feel like I'm on vacation when I'm riding in the United States with adventure cycling, because much of the drudgery that I have to do in the rest of the world, they've taken care of. So they've got a profile here that shows me what I'm gonna face that day. They identify places to camp. They identify where we can get food. And I love it. And I would do it all the time, except I want to see more than just the United States. But I have ridden across the United States twice. In Europe, there's somewhat similar organizations. There's Eurovelo. Folks heard of Eurovelo? Anyone? A few of you. Okay. So Eurovelo is nascent, and it's not, unfortunately, nowhere near as nice as adventure cycling. They do have a network of routes that you can do, but there are no brochures associated with anything. So it's up to you to figure out where the campsites are and where you're going to buy groceries and all that stuff. But it's a wonderful way to see Europe, and they've got some great routes. The rest of the world, that's more work. So there are different techniques that I've used. So I've looked at blogs that other riders have done and maybe copy their route. That's a little hit or miss though, because just because someone rode their bike there doesn't mean they made a good choice. So I've been burned by that sometimes. And a lot of people, they want to put things in a positive light, so they don't share when it was a bad ride. So I use blogs, but I like to double check that. Sometimes there are commercial tours that go through an area, and I've emailed them, and they're not generally willing to give me their, the GPX, the route they go. But often they have an itinerary that shows what towns they go through, so I can piece together my own route from that. And then other than that, in the rest of the world, it's a lot of hard work. I just spend days literally looking at Google Maps to figure out, where grocery stores are, where campsites are, possible routes. And then there are some cycling specific apps that I'm showing here that you can use. And some of them have heat maps, which you can see where other cyclists have ridden the most. And that helps, but mostly it takes quite a few hours to put together a route. All right, so let me say something about my bike and my equipment. So I have 7 bicycles. Does anybody have more than 7 bicycles? Okay, good. I have 3 touring bikes, but all the for everything I'm going to talk about tonight, we're all done on this bike. This is an Oregon-made bike. It's in Eugene. The company is CoMotion. It's fun for me to ride around the world on a bike made in Oregon. I think that's, I've always liked that. This is kind of their wide range of bicycles. This one is touring bicycles like this are kind of the trucks of the bicycle world. They've got a heavy-duty steel frame and heavy-duty steel racks. It's got low gears for climbing and be carrying a lot of weight. And it's got strong wheels are really important, and then wider tires and fenders. The price for this bike base is about $2,500, so I've got like a carbon fiber racing bike that's over $8,000. So actually, this bike's fairly inexpensive as in the world of nice bikes. And as I've got it shown here, it's about 34 pounds. That's a start. So we'll add on more weight as this goes on. So talk about what I carry with me. This is a picture. This is the same bike. I got it repainted before my last tour. And this is in my dining room, all my stuff laid out for the tour. And so zoom in on this. So there are a lot of similarities to backpacking, except instead of a backpack, I've got panniers that I put all my stuff in that's strapped to the bike. And then there's kind of what you'd expect of you when camping, backpacking, right? I've got a tent and a sleeping bag and a stove, and I've got some emergency food and electronics and then clothes. But, I don't have any luxuries. I have layers that I put on, and maybe I have like 2 pairs of shorts or 2 pairs of underwear and things like that, because laundry facilities may be a while. I have 1 nice shirt that I wear if I go to a restaurant or a museum, but no other luxuries. And one of the things that I like about bicycle touring is it emphasizes minimalism, right? For me, life is more about experiences than the things. And I'm living out of a pannier for 100 days, and not every day. I have my bad days, but generally I have a great time on these tours, right? So it's my happiness is not determined by the things I own. Although I do own 9 pairs of skis, but I think that's just okay. And then this is Brenny. She has been in other shots, and she will appear throughout this talk, and I will explain her later. All right, so this is the bike packed up, and at this point we're at 75 pounds, but we're not done yet. And the reason is there could be long stretches without services, without food. So this is a picture when I rode across Australia. This is a really iconic photograph. Every cyclist that has ridden across Australia, I can guarantee you, has had their picture taken at this sign. And the sign's a little bit hard to read, so I'll zoom in on it. Believe it or not, there's a section of road in Australia that doesn't make a turn for 90 miles. And I rode it in one shot. Now, it goes up and down a little, but not a single turn, right? Which is pretty crazy, right? And the reason they can do that in Australia is because there's nothing out there. And I mean nothing. Like there would, well, of course there aren't stores or gas stations or anything, but there are not even ranches or farms or anything for many miles. So I had, well, in West Texas was remote, and Australia took that to another level. I had many sections of 200 kilometers between services. And I'd like to put services in air quotes, because services in Australia often meant a roadhouse. That's what they call it. And this is a picture of a typical roadhouse. It kind of looks like something out of Mad Max, I think. A lot of the train did. So it's a gas station, and there's a convenience store of some sorts, often limited, and often there's a diner. And so, but that's it. And so between 200 kilometer sections. So I had to carry a lot of extra stuff at times, and this is the most I had to carry. This was, I thought I was going to go 3 days, so I think I had 11 liters of water. So that's like 25 pounds right there, plus all the food, plus Brenny. So all together, I think that's probably the most I had 105 pounds was my guess. There wasn't a scale. So, which is why, you know, I talked about you need to have strong wheels, right? You need to do it for carrying that much load. All right, and getting there, this is a picture of me. I went to started in Nordkapp, Norway. This is always the most stressful part of the tour for me. Yeah, I land in remote places where there are not bicycle shops. And of course, I have a fear, maybe the airline's going to lose my bike. But even worse, maybe they'll deliver the bike and the rear wheel's smashed and there's no bike shop I can go to. So it's always stressful. So far, I have always made it, although my friend joined me in Australia and they lost her bike for 5 days. But anyway, we made do. We got it eventually. So far, it's been successful. But like I said, it's high stress. Okay, so that's kind of the prep. And now let me talk about what it's like to ride, and I'll share some statistics and then talk about food and lodging. So this is a picture. This is me starting to ride. And like I said, I've done 5 tours. So this is a picture of me starting at the beginning of these tours. I suspect this slide does more for me than you, because I can think back and think of what I was thinking back then. But I'm glad at least I have a shot of me starting out. So those of you that know me know that I'm a nerd, that I'm obsessive compulsive, that I love statistics. So not surprisingly, in the 5 tours, I've made Excel spreadsheets for every single day, you know, how far, what cadence I did, what temperature it was, weather, time start, etc. So I'm going to share some of the statistics. So how far I ride, I like to ride 100 kilometers a day, 62 miles. For me, that's a nice balance between athleticism and not getting exhausted. I spend about almost 6 hours with my butt in the saddle every day, covering those 62 miles, but I take breaks and stuff. So I'm out. I take breaks and I have to shop for groceries and stuff like that. So I'm out for about 8.5 hours from the time I start, leave camp until I set up camp again. So it's kind of like a job, right? You know, I start earlier, but 7 or 8 in the morning, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm finished. I'm carrying a lot of weight and I do hills, so I go agonizingly slow at times. My average is only 10.6 miles per hour. So a little bit more about the distance I cover. 62 miles is both slow and fast. It's slow if you compare it to a car, of course. You could do 62 miles, you know, it's no big deal. But the funny thing is for example, on one of my tours, I went to the United Kingdom and I took a ferry and I started, this is John O'Groats, it's the northern tip of the United Kingdom. And a week or 10 days or 2 weeks go by. And there I am at Land's End at the southern tip of the United Kingdom. And, I've just cycled the length from north to south of the United Kingdom, or I've cycled the length of California or across Western Australia or across France. I'm still, I've done this for a lot of times. I'm still kind of amazed at how far you can cover at 60 to 100 kilometers a day. You can cross whole continents, right? I don't know. For me, it's still astounding. Okay, so people have told me many times, you must have legs of steel, which is, I know they're trying to be nice, but I actually don't like that, and I'll explain that. So this is a picture of an Olympic track cyclist. Now, this guy, I think you could say, has legs of steel, right? But that's not what I look like. And if anything, wouldn't it be, these days, carbon fiber or titanium, but more to the point, the reason I don't like it for that is because I think it incorrectly emphasizes the athleticism. I love riding my bike. That's not the hard part. And people go on organized tours where they pay as much as $1,000 a day so they can just ride the bike, and some organization takes care of everything else. The hard part of bicycle touring is the problem solving you have to do all the time. You're constantly solving problems. Like, what currency do I use in this country? And how do I get across the border? And what am I going to make for dinner tonight? And what am I going to do when the storm comes in? And when my bike breaks down? That's the stuff, that constant problem solving. The hard part is not riding your bike. The hard problem is all this stuff. And that's probably why after 100 days, it's like, okay, I'm ready to come home. And so in the talk, I'll give more examples of kind of that problem solving that happens all the time. All right, let me say something about food. I suspect many people are backpacked and have freeze-dried food. Fortunately, on all my tours, I have never had freeze-dried food, which is a good thing. And the reason is, of course, you're on a road, and so there are grocery stores, and sometimes really good grocery stores, like a Whole Foods. This is a picture in the UK. And when I'm fortunate enough to find a good grocery store, I can't control myself. So you can see this is one night's dinner, and well, it's probably breakfast too, but I crawl back to the tent and just eat all night. It's fantastic, right? So I love that part about bicycle touring. But I talked about riding in remote areas, and so sometimes the store that I have is something like this, a convenience store, which is good for buying a Coke or ice cream or chips. It's a sucky place to find dinner. And you talk about problem solving. This is my least favorite problem of walking around one of these small stores trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to make for dinner. And so I've had stuff like this. Ramen is my emergency food. I've had a lot of ramen, spaghetti, beans, SpaghettiOs, right? All that kind of stuff. And so it's cycling is not for the gastronomic inclined necessarily. Now, I have money, not that I'm rich or anything, but there are a lot of, I'll call them kids, meaning they're in their 20s, that ride around the touring, and they don't have much money, and they have no choice really but to buy food at a grocery store because they can't afford to eat out. Now, I can afford to eat out, and hell, I'd rather buy food, have someone make it rather than do it myself. But again, the choices can be pretty limited. So this is one of these roadhouses in Australia. And this one actually is a really nice one. But they fed me this slop that they called corn silverside. Actually, as roadhouse food, I actually had some vegetables there, so this wasn't bad. More typically, I get either hamburgers or something like this. And I went through about 3 weeks of Australia of getting this kind of food. And you can imagine how happy I was when I finally got to a real grocery store. So I like restaurants, but it doesn't always work out. So Brenny has appeared again. And so I think it's time to explain the 200-gram sheep in the room. So I have a blog, and many of you have followed my blog. So thanks to those of you that follow my blog. That's just fun. So I've done a blog every single tour. And I really get into photography. I've gotten more avid photographer as I've done this. And I decided that pictures would look better with someone else in them. And I thought it'd be good to add a second perspective. So in 2020, I invited Brenny to join me on my tour. What I didn't realize was how she would take over the blog. So I have a guest book, and rather than people asking me how I'm doing, there's like, what's Brenny up to? You know, where is she in that picture? And it changed from Scott's adventure cycling around the world to Brenny's adventure cycling around the world. So be careful who you invite on your tour. Okay, back to food. So I think for all of us that travel, one of the joys of travel is trying food around the world. And while I had my laments about some of the crappy food, I've also gotten to taste some really wonderful food around the world. To a large extent, it has just re-emphasized the stereotypes that we have. I was surprised how true those stereotypes are. Like, you really can't get pretzels in beer in Germany, or bakeries in France, right? But it's been some fun things. Like, I'm a big fan of Wallace and Gromit. And so it was neat to see, well, I could buy Wensleydale cheese in United Kingdom, which is something that's in Wallace and Gromit. I've also had some food mistakes. I have 4 of them here. So there have been many errors in translation. Up in the left, I thought I was buying butter, turned out to be yeast, so that didn't work. It looked like butter, though. I mean, look at that packet, right? And then there's the expression, do you have Moxie, right? And I didn't know Moxie is actually a drink that they sell in Maine. And their tagline is distinctly different. I would say distinctly bad, but I get the expression now. I had steak tartare in France and then got sick the next day. So clearly correlation, possible causation, we'll never know, right? And then I like to try, I'm not all that exotic an eater, but I like to try different foods. So in Southeast Asia, not surprisingly, I had insects, I had grasshoppers, and that was okay. Now, there's some things I will not try, though. So let's see if this video works. This is a market, Southeast Asia. I wouldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Yeah. All right, so let me say something about the lodging. About half the time is camping and half the time is in hotels. Nice thing is, in much of the world, it's fairly inexpensive. In Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia, I would stay for $15 to $20 a night. It was great. And I've stayed in some wonderful places. This is on the coast of Malaysia. This is obviously a tree house, and it's air conditioned, and even had TV. Funny thing is, I was paying $15 to $20 a night, and then it turned out the distance that I wanted to ride, this was the right place to stay. But I realized, like, $36 a night, what a ripoff. But now that I look back at it, $36 a night, why didn't I stay there a week, right? I mean, it was fantastic, right? I've also had some not so good experiences. So this is in Laos. It was $9 a night, which was nice. This is a picture of the bathroom and the squat toilet. Okay, I got used to that. And this is the shower, no hot or cold. And I think you're just supposed to, that water tray was pretty gross. I think you're supposed to pour it over yourself. This place had the added adventurous bonus that the guy who checked in clearly wanted to have sex with me. So he stopped by my room later on, and I was in the process of changing my clothes. I had my shirt off, which gave him the wrong message. But I kind of understand it, when you've got guns like this, right? So I ended up showing him pictures of my girlfriend to convince him that I was not interested in him. Anyway. So camping, I've done quite a bit of camping. I actually prefer to go camping in some wonderful places. This is in Hokkaido, Japan. Across the US, I've stayed in a lot of city parks, free, that's nice, but sometimes the amenities are pretty limited. Hopefully they have the bathroom, that's the most important thing. But for this night, this is what I did for the shower, and it was okay. Not great, but I've done that. I've stayed in a lot of commercial campgrounds. So if you're used to backpacking, obviously, this is not the pristine thing that you would used to backpacking. But after I've been on the road 8 or 9 hours, I'm tired. And all I'm looking for is a shower, a place to recharge my electronics. And I'm fine staying in some place like this. And the added advantage is, if you're in a place like this, often they have a store in the campground, or you're not far from the town. So you can go into town and you can get something. Now, I want to explain this a little because, I'm smiling here, but that's it's really just for the shot, because those who know me know that I really don't like sweets or ice cream. And when you're on the road as much as I am and doing as many miles, it's really important that you eat nutritiously. So I try and focus on just a healthy diet whenever I'm out there. And I think in particular, having a balanced meal is really important. So that's what I do. Okay, so sometimes camping, there's no commercial campground and there's no hotel. And so then you have to do what's called wild or stealth camping. You could also say illegal camping, where you just drag your bike off the road in the trees somewhere and hope that that no one comes over the night and kicks you out or arrests you or something, right? And I've done that all over the world. This is in South Australia, and there's Brenny. It's okay. The thing I don't like is water. You don't have water, so there's no shower, which can suck after 9 hours on riding your bike. And then I've got to carry water for dinner and for breakfast the next morning when I ride, and it just makes the logistics a lot more complicated. But I've done quite a bit of wild camping. Like this is South Australia. This is outside of Phoenix, Arizona, in this culvert, which was actually it was a pretty cool experience. And this is Japan. So Japan, I did a lot of wild camping in Japan. Just there were a lot of options. The forests are pretty dense there, so it was hard to find a place. And there was a lot of agriculture, so there weren't a lot of places to wild camp. But I got really good at doing just this, at camping under bridges. But that worked pretty well. Okay, so in the remaining time, I'm going to talk about why you'd ride your bicycle around the world. And you probably don't want me to talk for 3 hours. So I decided on one reason, and that's adventure. And I thought I'd put a definition of adventure up. An unusual and exciting, typically hazardous experience or activity. I'd also add, like to talk about problem solving as part of it. So in the rest of this talk, I'll talk about some of the adventurous as in hazardous or problem solving that I've had to do. I talked about, I have a blog, and at the start of my blog, every single time I've put a audio clip in, and I'm going to play this clip for you. This clip is from a 1950s television or a radio show, and I think it captures kind of my sense of adventure.
Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape.
I've probably heard that 100 times, and I still want it. Okay, let's see. So a few pictures, and then I'll get to themes. So this is riding in Norway, which was in spite of the rain and some other experience. It was really wonderful. Norway is a very wealthy country, and they have a lot of tunnels. And some cyclists really don't like. They hate tunnels. They get scared of it. I love tunnels because the option was to do some big climb, and I'd go into a tunnel in a heartbeat. The longest tunnel I did was 6 kilometers. It's noisy as hell in there, but I don't know. I thought it was okay. This is crossing the border from Thailand to Malaysia. I've crossed a lot of borders. I've never done a border crossing like this. So this one, this is my favorite. Stands out in my mind. What a way. I think that there was a ferry that wasn't running, and some guy, I hired some guy to take me across. This is Tasmania. So this is my friend Bren, who joined me in Tasmania, and obviously it's spectacular. This is a little bit, don't do much gravel riding. I'm going to do more in the future, but got a chance to do some of that. Now these pictures make it look obviously exciting and adventurous, but that's not always the case. As I'll show in the next picture, sometimes it is in fact dull. And there are a lot of jokes about sister city of boring Oregon, right? Natural pairing. Okay, so themes. So I get asked about part of the adventure is your bicycle breaking down, and yeah, my bike break down many times. So let's talk about flats. I've had 19 flats altogether, which isn't bad. This is in West Texas. There are these evil things called goat heads. And I dragged my bike off the road to go to a library. It's just, 2 seconds of inattention. And I had all these punctures here. And on this trip, I was actually worried that I was going to have to hitchhike to get more tubes for my bike. I've broken derailleur cables. I've broken spokes. So this is actually showing a picture of a broken rim. The worst, and then other things, the worst is my bottom bracket broke, and I actually had a high-end Chris King bottom bracket for those that are bike nerds like me. Fortunately, so this is something I wasn't going to be able to repair myself. Fortunately, this happened in Phnom Penh, and there was a high-end bicycle shop, and so they put a Shimano bottom bracket in, and I was off. But otherwise, I would have had to hitchhike maybe hundreds of miles to go to a shop that could fix things for me. Weather has always been an adventure for me. This is heading into some storm in Hokkaido, Japan. So let me share a story about the wind. So I started one tour in Nordkapp, the northernmost point of Norway, as the name you might guess. Nordkapp is 71 degrees north, which is as far north as Barrow, Alaska is 71 degrees north. So you're way the hell up there. And you can see the Arctic Circle below. And I didn't even see darkness, the whole time I was in Norway. It was 30 days. It wasn't until I got to Scotland that I finally got to see night. Anyway, I set out on the first day, and this is what I saw. And there's a TikTok meme about, at this point, he knew he effed up. And I was kind of in Norway a month too early. I got a lot of rain when I was in Norway, but what happened this particular day? So this is a shot of it's about 2 a.m. in my tent, and it's hard to show pictures. What's happened is my tent is about to be torn apart by the wind. There was a windstorm like I've never experienced before, and it was so bad that I realized my tent is not going to survive. So 2 a.m, I had to pack up my tent and hit the road. And it's hard to capture what the wind was. The wind was so strong, I couldn't ride my bike. I could only push my bike. And even then at times I had to just brace and hold on to the bike. What you can see in this picture is there are no people around, there are no trees, there's no shelter, and rain squalls were coming in. So this is one of the few times where I was honestly kind of worried, how am I going to get through the next 24 hours? Hypothermia certainly came to mind. Fortunate for me, as I said, Norway is a rather wealthy country, and about 2 or 3 kilometers down the road, there was a rest area. The rest area had a handicap bathroom, and so me and all my stuff, I set up camp inside the handicap bathroom, and from about 3 o'clock that day until the next day, actually, it was a wonderful place to camp, right? But it's kind of, that was kind of a scary situation. Rain. I've experienced tons of rain, and so I've got another clip to play. This is Malaysia.
Checking into my hotel in Malaysia. It's like December 1st.
It's been raining
all day.
No, not
quite as hard as this, but at times it has. You can see it's crazy.
It's something to ride on.
The road kind of has covered with
just a river of water. Kids are playing and lakes that are formed. So as you can imagine, I'm never going to forget that day. All right, so other adventure is wildlife. I love this sign. So another clip, and the question for you is what country I'm riding in. Hey guys. Are you afraid of me? Afraid of me? Why don't you get off the road and stay off? There we go. So, backpacking, you certainly see wildlife, but I said I ride my bike in remote areas. So I've seen lots of wildlife. This is just a picture of some of the animals I saw on my Australia tour. I didn't realize that things like wombats existed. So anyway, all sorts of animals I've never seen before. That was fun. And then there's birds. So those of you that have shared a car ride with Audrey Bergsman or Mark Fitzsimmons knows that they will talk to you about birds endlessly. I'm actually fairly sane, so I don't get that excited about birds, but even I had to admit that in Australia, the birds were pretty cool. All right, I've seen some dangerous animals as well. So this is a sign from Yellowstone. It's hard to see, but it says bear with cubs crossing road. Unfortunately, I didn't see the bear or the cubs. Large mammals, I think it'd be pretty cool to see it. I'm not too worried about that. But in Japan, I wild camped a lot, and I saw all these signs for bear warning. I actually didn't put this on my blog because I didn't want to scare my mom. But I heard something one night, but I didn't see any bears. I have seen some scary animals though. So in Malaysia, there were these monitor lizards. These were beasts. These things were like 5 to 6 feet long, and they looked like they could do some serious harm. And they were around quite a bit. This is the second most dangerous creature that I've seen. This is in Australia, in Adelaide. This is an eastern brown snake, which kills a number of people every year and has been known at times to charge people. In my case, it just slithered across the road and it was gone before I could get my camera out. This isn't my picture. It certainly got my attention, but you know, that's it. Now, I said the second most dangerous animal in the world. So anybody know what the most dangerous animal in the world is? Human. I said other than humans, though.
Well, moose are pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Hippo.
No.
Mosquito.
Who said that? All right. Sure for you. Yeah, this is the most dangerous creature in the world. The World Health Organization estimates mosquito-borne diseases account for 750,000 deaths per year. I mean, it's worth everything, you know. I don't care. Sharks, bears, anything. Nothing kills like the mosquito. And so that was part of my adventure, right? So this is, I rode through Laos. And this chart is color-coded to show malaria hazard. And this is my route, right through the middle of it. So when I landed in Vietnam, I had to go to a clinic in Hanoi and get the right drugs. And, you know, it wasn't rocket science, but you could imagine, you know, the language and finding a clinic and how the healthcare system. I said the problem solving in bicycle touring, you know, this is one of those problems that you have to solve. All right, so the last part, I want to talk about some of the people I've had the pleasure to share my trip with. That's been an adventure as well. I always like this meme. You ride bikes too. We've just become best friends. There's some real truth to that. So I've had some friends that beforehand we made plans for them to ride with me, and maybe someone here will join me in my next tour, Great Divide. So people that plan to join me, I talked about Louise, who joined me across the United States. This is my friend Darren, who has joined. I've done 5 tours, and every single one of them, he has flown out and ridden with me for about 10 days. It's kind of mixed. So I get in my own routine. He joins me halfway in the tour. And so I'm used to going at my own pace and figuring where I'm going to stop. And then now I have to compromise with someone else. And, you know, how far are we going to do that day? What are we going to do for lunch? All that stuff. So that can be difficult. But Darren is a really nice guy. The only downside is I've been on the road for, 50 days. And it'd be nice to have someone to spoon with. But we go to nice places and I take him to good dinners. But to date, he hasn't wanted to spoon with me. So, so this is Bren, and I think everybody can tell where that shot was taken. She's obviously an attractive woman, and I think she likes that picture. She joined me in Tasmania, and we went up to Sydney. She likes that picture better. I like this picture because to me, this is to me the money shot. This is what real bicycle touring is like. There was some squall in Victoria, and there we are, just huddled on the side of the building. We couldn't go in the building, waiting for the squall to end. And other people I met on the road, I won't belabor you with this, but there really is something about, you ride bicycles too, we become best friends. I'm on social media connected to all these guys, and it's just been really neat to share the road with them for some amount of time, a few days or a week or more. And then there are the non-cyclists I meet. So I kind of have a story here. So this is Zoe, who I met in Western Australia. She was hiking the Muda Binda Trail. I probably had the name wrong. Anyway, some long trail there. And I met her at a coffee shop, and she said to me, she was a lady. She said, I spent 12 days on the road and I didn't see a single person. And I thought, well, okay. I mean, that's what works for you. But the thing I like about bicycle touring over backpacking is I like culture and meeting people. So sometimes my interactions are very brief. There's this family of 5 kids. It's in Romania. I just rode by for 30 or 60 seconds, but we have a connection. But on all my rides, I've met, just neat people throughout the world, and I share dinner or an evening or go out to lunch with them or, something like that. And to me, that's the magic of bicycle touring is meeting these people. It's an overused trope to say it restores my faith in humanity. My faith in humanity has never really been lost, but has made me appreciate just how wonderful people are throughout the world. Okay, so final thought. This is from an ad campaign that Australia Northern Territories did in the 1990s. You'll never know if you never go. So I hope I've inspired you guys to do some of your adventures. Okay, questions, anyone? Why don't we hit the lights? There.
Scott, how do you get 12 or more weeks off a year?
Boy, so that is every time I've done talk, that's been the number one question.
Oh, how do you work that?
Well, there's like a Steve Martin joke about, I won't tell you the joke, but it's too long. The trick is to be ready to retire first, so.
Oh, so you threaten to retire.
Get a big pile of money so you can quit your job, and then say, I'm going to quit if I can't get the time off and work for half of what you used to get paid. And you'd be surprised how willing they are in that case. I wish it was a better trick, but there's not.
Who made the hats? You sew?
No. Laurel things. Yeah. I'm just handing out. I don't take any credit for sewing. Believe me, or cooking. All right.
Scott, yeah, you mentioned a little bit about communicating and stuff. So all these different places, how has it been communicating with?
You mean like language barriers?
Yeah,
or
language,
you mean?
yeah.
Well, I would say so. When I went in Southeast Asia, it was 100 days, and I have Google Translate on my phone and do that. But honestly, that's why I went to Australia after that, because I got tired of having conversations that weren't much more than pointing your fingers at something like that, right? So I listened to a lot of audiobooks, but that's part of the adventure isn't always glamorous, right? So yeah, occasionally I'd find someone that spoke English, but in rural areas it doesn't happen a lot, right? So that's definitely a downside.
I suppose the guy in Phnom Penh, the bike that he figured
Phnom
out.
Penh's a big city, right? And they spoke English, right?
Okay.
But they all.
What time of year do you usually go? Is it at the same time every year or just
Well,
depends on where you're cycling?
Yeah, that's a problem. I'd like to ride the length of Africa, and that would be in January, and I'd miss the ski season. So that'd be a real dilemma. I really like going to Australia in the fall, our fall, their spring, because it's a crappy time to do anything. Usually I go in the summer, but it's, there are opportunity costs for everything, right? The summer's a great time. So it's been mostly summer and then a couple of fall ones.
Scott, any tips on keeping the bike safe during trips to the grocery or, while you're at night or sleeping?
Oh, I did have in Texas, I stopped at a convenience store and the clerk says, someone's stealing a bike. And I ran out and someone was going to my handlebar bag. So I have a little really lightweight lock that weighs nothing, but it's just to stop a casual theft. And sometimes I put a little rubber band around my handlebar brake so that they can't just wheel it off. The best is to ride with a friend, but I have a lock that I use and hopefully it's enough, and it has been so far.
Yeah, the tip on the brake on the handlebar is a good one. Thanks.
I don't know. Ann?
Well, you mentioned you brought electronics. I'm curious about what all you brought and then how often you could charge them
Yeah,
up.
so I brought a big honking battery because if you're wild camping, you're not, but I've got headphones, camera, my phone. What else have I got? Those are the big three. Yeah, so, and then I have a backup phone because, these days, your phone's your life, right? It's got my route. It's how I make hotel reservations and stuff like that. So I have a backup phone as well. Yeah. So, but mostly it's a big battery. And usually it was an excuse to stay in a hotel sometimes because okay, I'm going to plug everything in and recharge overnight. So every 4 or 5 days I'd stay in a hotel to recharge everything.
What kind of camera? Do you use your phone camera or do you bring?
No, I'm kind of a camera snob now. I have a Sony RX100, a compact camera, in part because I take 5,000 photos on the trip. And if I put them all on my iPhone, it would get crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it's really nice to do it that way. Yeah. Oh, in the back there.
Is there it's amazing to me that you only have 19 flats from all
Yeah.
the miles you've done.
Yeah. It's like one every 1,400 miles.
So is there a particular shop in the Portland metro area that lends itself for touring of that long distance touring like that, as opposed to ones that are more geared toward racing?
I don't know. Not particularly. There are, at least not that I'm aware of. There are news groups where you can get, Reddit or Facebook where people geek out on this stuff, and like a lot of people like Schwalbe tires, and you can mail order those kind of things. I haven't found, in the Bay Area, there's some dedicated bicycle touring shops. I'm unaware of something local. I mean, they're just good shops that will cover that, but not specialize.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, I want to do the Great Divide mountain bike race, which goes from Jasper, Banff area through the Rockies and ends at the Mexico border. That will be off-road. So I haven't done any off-road. So it'll be bike packing. So it'll be a different bike. So, but I also want to go across Africa. I want to start at Prudhoe Bay and end in bottom of South America. So there's no shortage of things I want to do, but yeah.
We have an online question.
Oh, okay.
Would you have a recommendation for someone as a first long bike ride overseas, not just cost, but easy to navigate route and
Yeah,
accommodation?
I think Eurovelo 6 is what I'd recommend. That's on the Danube. It goes on the Danube the whole way. And for a new cyclist, I mean, they've got campsites everywhere. And families do it and people do it on e-bikes. I found it a little boring myself. But if you're new to bicycle touring, I would say Eurovelo 6 and the Danube is a great though. But I'd say as far as the best, Norway was a pretty spectacular thing to do and not that hilly with all the tunnels. So I'd recommend that.
Just not from NorCap.
Well, don't start on May. That's for damn sure, right? I mean, that's in the back.
What do you do to prepare physically to be
Yeah.
safe for these trips? And how does the saddle feel after all that?
I'm okay. I'd say, I've started as well as May, this one, right? And it's really nice to start in the fall because I've got all summer riding, right? And you can do it regardless. The difference is happiness. The first 2 weeks, I can be pretty cranky if I'm not in shape, right? I can still do it, but I'm not having very much fun until I get in shape. And I definitely knows that. And also there's some safety. There are times you might have to ride your bike 80 miles to get to the next place to stay. And you'd really like to have that fitness when you start. Now I'm active in Portland Bike Club and Portland Bellow and stuff like that. So I don't do, having said that, I don't ride my loaded touring bike because it's such a drag. I take my fast racing bike, so. Mark, third question.
Can you pretty flexibly plan your routes, or do you really need to take into consideration prevailing winds?
No, I do think about prevailing winds, right? So big picture, I think about that. I love the flexibility. When I get up in the morning, I do not know where I'm going to finish that day. And I love that. So I may have, 50 miles or 30 miles to do this. I'll do 50, I'll do 80. And then I've tacked on, all right, Kangaroo Island. I've got time. I'm going to go see that. Or I've extended tours. I went to Istanbul. I wasn't planning on going to Istanbul, but I just extended it. So, that is to me, one of the greatest joys of bicycle touring.
Has there been a favorite? I mean, if you had to say.
You know, I've thought about that. They've all been great, honestly. Even in the US ones, which seems have been wonderful as well. Like I said, particular places, Norway was pretty cool. Even Tasmania was pretty wonderful. You know, West Texas, even though it was remote, I kind of liked conquering that remoteness. So going to the Rockies, I don't know, there's been so many. California coast was nice. Going down from the whole Oregon coast. That was just nice touring, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Lana?
How much do the trips cost you?
Yeah, so not that much. So I spend about, I used to have detailed records because I'm a nerd, right? I kind of give up, and it depends on whether, you know, do you include the cost of the bike, you include the cost of the airfare, you know, something like $5,000 to go for 100 days, you know, and you know, that's nothing, right? If you were retired, someone said, okay, so that's 3 months, 5,000, so maybe that's $20,000 a year to go. I mean, it's not much money. Now maybe the airfare is more on top of that, but you know, it's great.
What's your bike made of?
Steel.
What do you use most?
Steel. Yeah, steel. Yeah, and touring are kind of bike snobs about steel. I mean, I have a carbon fiber bike and I love it, but the thought is, well, it's resilient, and then you could repair it, possibly have someone weld it. This is a dangerous area, though. So do we have 4 hours? I've spent, you know, about 2,500 hours on my bike, and I've thought about every component. I can tell you what kind of spokes I have, and anyway, I won't bore you, but.
Did you buy special wheels for these rides and not use the wheel that came with it?
I started with the wheels that came with it. CoMotion does a good job. I have built my own wheels more than once. One time poorly, and I had a lot of broken spokes. So I've gotten better at building wheels. I buy these really heavy duty spokes. I'm kind of nerding out, but yeah. So yeah, like I said, the wheels are the biggest deal, right? And I've certainly become more aware of that as I've ridden more, right? And so yeah.
You have to move up to 36 spokes.
Oh yeah, I've got 36. Actually, I have 32 in the front, 36 in the back.
What kind of tire?
Varies. Schwalbe Marathon. I can't remember.
It's not like that.
It's
I think I have that.
38 or 40 millimeter.
Yeah.
We can talk about bike tech now. Yeah.
Does traffic play into choosing a route?
Well, the big picture, like I said, I tell you how much I hate cities, right? So I will avoid cities, and I mean, that's kind of why I spend so many days trying to figure out a route, because no one wants to drive in traffic, right? But sometimes you have to, right? And I was a bicycle commuter. I'm actually okay with traffic. Some people really hate it, but I mean, I don't want it, right? But I can do it for some. So it certainly factors in, right? I would take a long, I'm there to see. So if I go a longer route that has less traffic, I'm generally okay with that, right? I mean, I'm there to have fun anyway. And then we should probably.
Is there any grade you just simply say no to, or if it's a road and it's made for vehicles, you'll attempt it?
I get more worried by how long between services. That's what scares me, right? Like in Japan, there was a really steep mountainous thing, and then it was, 70 miles between services, and then you figure out how many liters of water I have to carry, and then if I don't make it, so that was a concern. But the grade of the road, well, I pushed my bike up a lot of stuff, right? I could push my bike up, so that's okay. All right, well, maybe.
So in Australia, were there any bike paths or any, no, so it's all on road? Okay.
And sometimes they have these things called road trains there, where it's 3 semis stacked up. And I would ride, if one came up upon me, it wasn't so bad, but I see one coming in the distance, and then I check my mirror, because if there were 2 of them at the same time, I was screwed, and then I have to pull off the side of the road. So it was tiring to constantly looking at your mirror to see what's coming up, right? Now that wasn't bad very often, but sometimes.
But most of the riding is.
It's so rare for me. Okay, so occasionally there'd be a bike path. I shouldn't say that. In Australia, there were some bike passes, now that I think about it. And those were nice, but it's not general. Okay, how much?
You were in Canada, and what did you like about it?
No, I haven't. So
Victoria.
another, well, okay. Okay, maybe last question, Dale.
Not a question, just a comment. You have inspired me.
Okay,
I am not going to be going around the world, but next time I do 30 miles out of Vernonia, I'm gonna pretend that I'm you. And and lastly, you knocked it out of the park tonight. Amazing, very fun presentation.